Good morning, and welcome to the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society, whether you are here in person or with us on Zoom. We extend a very special welcome to Ann Ross and her daughter, Lauren. Ann is our esteemed and beloved elder and founder, and we are so thrilled that you are here with us today. Welcome with all our gratitude and love, Ann. I am Louise Cadwell. I've been a member since 1986. Ashley and I were at the first service 40 years ago. Our sons were 2 and 5, and they're now 42 and 45. It's a miracle to us, having lived away from Middlebury for 20 years, that the congregation and this place and the spirit of CVUUS has grown to what it is today. But of course, it's not a miracle. It's the result of so much hard work and vision over so many years by the founders, by the sustainers, by all of you, by all of us. Wherever you are and whoever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. If you need hearing assistance, you can find it in the back, or you can raise your hand and someone will bring you a headset. Please silence your devices if you haven't already. Here are some ways that you can communicate with people at CVUUS. You can fill out a yellow card to share milestones and passages and put it in the offertory basket, and it will be shared later in the service. You can fill out a pink card if you have a pastoral need and place it in the envelope with hearts in the lobby, and someone in the caring network will be in touch with you. If you are new, please fill out a blue sheet so that we will be able to be in touch with you. Today, as always, we are grateful, full of gratitude to worship on the land of the Western Abenaki people. So join us now for a reflection on 40 years from Acorn to Oak, which is a metaphor that John Berninghausen likes to use for the growth of CVUUS. I'm going to share a poem by Mary Oliver entitled Fletcher Oak. There is a tree here so beautiful it even has a name. Every morning when it is still dark, I stand under its branches. They flow from the thick and silent trunk. One can't begin to imagine their weight. Year after year they reach, they send out smaller and smaller branches and bunches of flat green leaves to catch the light. Of course, this has consequences. Every year the oak tree fills with fruit. And just now, since it is September, the acorns are starting to fall. I don't know if I will ever write another poem. I don't know if I'm going to live for a long time yet, or even for a while, but I'm going to spend my life wisely. I'm going to be happy and frivolous and useful. Every morning in the dark, I gather a few acorns and imagine inside of them the pale oak trees. In the spring, when I go away, I'll take them with me to my own country, which is a land of sun and restless ocean and moist woods. And I'll dig down, I'll hide each acorn in a cool place in the black earth to rise like a slow and beautiful poem, to live a long time.
I'm Alice Berninghausen, and I want to bring to your attention a CVUUS historical artifact. This small wooden chalice that I will be lighting, and Artley will be leading us in the words, is the original chalice. It was used in our very first CVUUS meeting, service I should say, in January of 1986, and it was lit on subsequent Sundays for many years. It's currently used by the Religious Exploration Program for our children over in Fenn House. And I think it's a sweet history to know that the origin of this chalice and also that it's still in use.
I'm Artley Wolfson. This morning's chalice lighting words appeared in our second newsletter, sent out a week before our first worship service in January 1986. Please join me in saying the words printed in your order of service and on the screen. We join in a common quest for the discovery of life's deeper meaning, for the enduring strength of hope, for the inspiration of joy and laughter, for the mind's illumination by the torch of wisdom, for hearts warmed by the mysteries of love, for souls enriched by the winds of the living Spirit.
You got us? Hi, Pearl.
Hi, Hannah. I'm happy to be here today talking about our history. We met earlier this week and we thought we would do an interview. Okay, is this okay? Is this better? Okay, good. We thought we would ask each other some questions about what it was like growing up here in the CVUUS faith. So, Hannah, just tell me a little bit about what your family's journey to CVUUS was.
Well, I was born into the Quaker community here in Middlebury. And when I was 8 or 9, particularly prompted by my mom, we went church shopping. She was looking for something a little bit different. And that's where we first met Pearl, at the Salisbury Congregational Church. I remember being in the Berninghausen's living room. I must have been 9 years old. I remember meeting at the Cornwall Town Hall, and I remember meeting in the East Middlebury Library. We were a small but very tight-knit group. We wouldn't meet in the summers. Remember that? Yeah. What about you, Pearl? What was your journey, and what were some of your impressions of those early days?
Well, it's funny. Thanks for the dates about when you started, because I remember being 11, and that is true. I would have been 11 then. I don't know if people have 11-year-olds in the room, but it's not the easiest thing to get an 11-year-old to go to church, you know. So I've got an idea for you. What I remember is that my mom would bribe us after church, and we would get to go to the gas station in East Middlebury, and I would always choose a Charleston Chew and an Archie's comic. I ended up with a big stack of Archie's comics. But kidding aside, I remember in Cornwall there was a stage, and it must have been because there was a stage we did so many plays. We were always doing plays. I had an alter ego as a fancy Southern lady named Maudie, and Abby would help me with, you were Sophie, and I was Maudie, and that was just really so much fun. And you also were Sophie. And I remember we went in 1990, we went to Washington, D.C. We advocated in front of Congress for the ratification of the International Rights of the Child. That was really an amazing experience, speaking in front of Congress at that time. And I remember more than just the Charleston Chews in East Middlebury. I remember that it was such a small group upstairs. We would be downstairs, and there was just a small group up there, like 8 people. And I think that made an impression on me that they were doing something important. It was, a small group of people. It's a little easier to be where you are, but they knew they were going somewhere. That was a little, I don't know if it's hard or brave, but it was just, I remember being a kid and that the smallness, the fewness of the people made an impression on me that they were doing something important. I have a question for you, Hannah. You now have such a leadership role in this community that raised you as a child. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that and tell me what that's been like.
It's true. For those of you who don't know, I was the president of the congregation last year. I had to leave that role to be on the search team for our next minister. There were a number of years I couldn't be as involved as I wanted to because, as you know, when you have kids in sports, there's a lot of competing interests for Sunday morning, and that was a real challenge. But in 2020, the church became, the society became such an important part of my life, and I was nervous to be elected president. I said, what if they don't like me anymore? Or what if I don't like them? And fortunately, I can say the latter is definitely not true. I had a wonderful time serving as president and every leadership role I've ever had at CVUUS. So it has felt like a natural evolution to my growing up here, and you all have trusted me, and you've always seen me. So it's been my pleasure to give back in that way. And Pearl, I love that we're up here together because even though you don't come to church on Sundays, I think being raised a Unitarian really has guided your life, and I'd love for you to talk about how that is true.
Sure, I'd like to talk about that. One thing is that Johanna married my husband Seth and so that's just a very important part of my life.
So she's 2 for 2.
Oh, yeah. So that's just so important. But I think that I sort of live something I grew up here with every day. In my professional life, I'm a pediatrician. I spend a lot of time talking and thinking about what keeps children healthy, and often am finding myself talking about community. So when I think about what it was like to be raised a Unitarian, I think I had a group of children around me, friends, people I wasn't necessarily spending lots of time with in my regular day-to-day life, but I had children like you and the Cadwell's kids, and also a group of adults who loved me and cared about me, and that has just been profoundly healthy for me growing up. And I spend a lot of time talking to my patients about what are your sources of community, who do you have, who are your caring children around you, who are the caring adults around you, and that I was really lucky to have that. And so I actually do talk about being raised here all the time in my professional life. Yeah. So Hannah, growing up in the CVUUS church, let's just end telling each other a few quick stories. Just a quick story. What do you think of when you remember being raised here?
Real quick, a story that sticks out in my mind and that has stayed with me in my life is an activity that your mom, Catherine, had us do one Sunday, which was white felt and black felt So we had a piece of white felt, and we put these beautiful colored shapes on the white felt, and we said, oh, that looks so nice, you know. Then we had a piece of black felt, and we put the shapes on the black felt. And wow, the colors really popped, and they looked so much more dynamic. And so Catherine said, remember, you only have good days because you have bad days, and because of the contrast. And when I have a bad day, I think about that.
That's funny because the first quick story that popped into my mind is about your mom. That's funny. That's such a nice thing. But I remember it was in Cornwall. We were in Cornwall at that time, and we were outside. I remember being in the parking lot. I was in the parking lot, and you had us do this exercise where we had to write down 3 things that we loved, like really loved. And not just sort of like liked a little bit, but really loved. And I remember you shared something that was a little vulnerable, and that has always stuck with me, that this was a place where you could talk about vulnerable things, the most important things, things that you really, really felt so deeply about. And that's really just, that was very memorable for me to know that this was a place where you could do that. And I will also just say, Hannah, that one of the blessings, if you will, of being raised here is that we have had our friendship, and I moved back here 5 years ago and just have so cherished being able to reconnect with you as adults, having grown up here. I just adore you.
And I you. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. I'm Rich Wolfson. I've been a member since the beginning. I've served a number of roles in this congregation. Currently, I'm on the finance team and the tech team. I make the slides. I have 2 reflections which will be interrupted by a brief hymn. These are stressful times. A reactionary president is in office. One of his first moves to end support for renewable energy. Conservative evangelical Christian influence is on the rise. America and Russia engage in nuclear sword rattling, threatening apocalypse. Young families wonder how to raise children with optimism and a moral compass in a grim world, especially if they don't subscribe to the dogmas of traditional religions. That sounds like today, but it was the early 1980s. The president was Ronald Reagan. Conservative Christians were the politically influential moral majority. Russia was the Soviet Union. Renewable energy, a nascent solar industry, and global nuclear arsenals were peaking at some 60,000 weapons. In 1984 to 85, several young families with UU backgrounds found each other through a local peace group called Plowshares, Citizens to Reverse the Nuclear Arms Race. Seeking spiritual community and progressive religious exploration for their children, they talked of forming a UU congregation. In an interaction that's become known as CVUUS's pee or get off the pot moment, Abby Sessions and Artley Wolfson met in Ben Franklin, which was then Middlebury's downtown department store. Abby said, "We'll do it if you'll do it." The two were agreeing to start a new UU community. To widen the circle, they reached out to others, known or potential UUs, and they kept their names in this green box, which is arguably CVUUS's first home. This is the very one. In December 1985, a group of 11 gathered at the Wolfsons' Weybridge home to meet the Reverend Dean Starr, the energetic head of the New Hampshire-Vermont UU district. Dean gave encouragement and provided advice and worship resources. Widening the circle again, 22 adults and children visited First UU in Burlington just before Christmas to experience a full-fledged UU service. During a potluck afterwards, Reverend Bob Sengas, a Buddhist UU, added his blessing and warm encouragement. Turning to practical matters, the growing group met at Sessions' Cornwall home on January 11th, 1986. That's exactly 40 years ago today. Individuals volunteered to take on various responsibilities: planning adult worship, planning children's religious exploration, starting a newsletter, opening a checking account. A rudimentary committee structure took shape. The whole group would act as our steering committee. On January 26, 1986, in a significant snowstorm, the intrepid group held its first worship service at Berninghausen's Cornwall home with more than 30 people in attendance. There they are. You'll see some familiar faces if you look. This was the only time CVUUS met in a private home. After that, we followed the advice of Reverend Tom Chulak of the UUA's New Congregations program to begin as you mean to go on and hold services at least twice a month in a public space. From 1986 to 1989, CVUUS met at Sarah Partridge House in East Middlebury. Services were led by those among us, by visiting speakers and visiting ministers. Typical Sunday attendance was about 35 adults, with more adults and kids in the RE program downstairs. Broadening our connections, CVUUS in 1988 formally affiliated with the Unitarian Universalist Association, and there is our UUA affiliation certificate. Concerned about burnout among lay leaders, the congregation voted to search for a quarter-time minister. Reverend Mark Estrin arrived in 1989, and here's Mark with Abby and several other familiar, or maybe not so familiar, faces. He moved from the Moscow, Idaho UU congregation back to Vermont, where he'd helped found Burlington's Peace and Justice Center and had been involved with Bread and Puppet Theater. Shortly after his arrival, CVUUS moved to larger space at the Cornwall Town Hall. And I should add that the search committee that brought us Mark included 4 people who are here today, including Ann Ross. Creative and energetic, Mark encouraged CVUUS to meet weekly for a mixture of worship services, congregational conversations, and social justice discussions. Until then, we'd held services only twice a month. Mark's intense political focus soon became controversial, and in 1991, the congregation encouraged his resignation. CVUUS returned to twice-monthly services. In the early 1990s, Sunday attendance dwindled to as few as 12. But the tiny congregation persisted with hope, humor, and Abby's flowers while worrying about long-term survival.
Good morning. I'm Mitch Kramer. I've been here since 1986. I didn't have a gray hair when I started, and look what these people have done to me. Well, I am here to ask you to join me in singing Old Hundredth. Now, Old Hundredth is a hymn that's been around for centuries in various forms, but it's relevant to us here because when we started, we sang Old Hundredth at the beginning of our services for many, many years. I'm going to say maybe 10 years. Now, there are many different versions of this hymn, but we're going to sing our version. The words are on the screen. The other versions can be found in your gray hymnal, and they vary depending upon, let's say, the degree of theology you want to put in. But we're going to sing this one. If you want to sing a different version, where you use, do what you want. Now, Jennifer's going to play it through one time to get the tune, and then we'll sing it together. And when we sing it like you mean it.
The first part of my reflection was entitled Connection and Commitment. The second part is entitled Sanctuaries and Ministries. So we left with this tiny group of 12 proceeding optimistically, but really worried about their long-term survival. Then, in the mid-1990s, came the Ann Ross moment. And I'd like to add this welcome to Ann Ross that Louise already presented. Ann Ross has been such an important figure in this congregation. Let's hear it right from her, interviewed just last month by Ashley Cadwell.
We were in the town hall in Cornwall.
Yeah,
Right.
I hadn't thought of that in years.
But we'd grown so much, we needed to move. And we couldn't figure out where to go. And we were in a quandary, and Rich remembers, and Bill and Abby remembers, we're in a meeting and we're about to give up, remember? And Ann, you said, we either buy that old Jehovah's Witness, or I'm going to Burlington.
And I was there. I remember that solution. I remember the going to Burlington part.
That was a nuclear threat.
You were going to take your grandchildren to Burlington.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
we did it. We did it.
So that was the challenge. For those of you who haven't been in Middlebury more than 10 years or so, there was an old Jehovah's Witness hall at the corner of Cross and Water Streets where there's now a house that was moved there by the college some years ago. That's what we bought for $108,000. And she was challenging us to make that purchase. Be bold or die was our mantra. In 1994 to 95, there were 39 of us, and we thought daringly, planned carefully, and decided to purchase the building for the $108,000. The guiding spirit who gave us confidence to do this was Steve Meyer. Where are you, Steve? He really gave us the confidence we could do this. But we were in a bind. The UUA wouldn't guarantee our mortgage because too much of our budget would go to the building. At the very last minute, Ann and Jim Ross stepped up and guaranteed the mortgage. In fall of 1995, we moved in. To us, the building was beautiful, even though it was ugly. We returned to weekly worship services because our congregation grew quite dramatically with the new building very quickly. Some were lay-led, largely by member Steve Tromulak, and some by ministers Patience Stoddard and Mary Thibault, who, with amazing dedication, commuted from eastern Vermont and New Jersey, respectively. Slowly, our circle widened again. Over the next few years, CVUUS grew in strength, stability, numbers, and visibility in the community, thanks to everyone in the adolescent congregation and to our commuting ministers. We also had yet another sanctuary in the late 1990s, this one outdoors. We didn't meet in the summer, so each June, Francis and Paul Stone, who are here, invited the congregation to hold its final service of the year under a big tent at Stonewood Farm in Orwell. It was a UU revival meeting. Next slide. Where are we? There we go. It was a UU revival meeting, a mix of animals, grasses of the fields, spirituality, and fun, including a goat who enjoyed eating orders of service. Amy Zucker Morgenstern, a Harvard Divinity student at that time, joined us as our one-year intern minister in 1998. Then CVUUS was accepted into the UUA's Extension Ministry program, which supported young congregations while they built resources to become financially self-sufficient. Reverend Johanna Nichols, stand up please, Johanna. Became our full-time extension minister in 1999. She helped CVUUS deepen worship, develop lay leadership, become more organized, reach out to the broader community. We also hired part-time office and RE coordinators at that time. Music became increasingly important. We switched to live piano from recorded music and engaged our first choir director, Sandy Tenzing, who formed the vibrant choir that continues today. The choirs collectively made stoles, which many in the congregation here are wearing now, date from that time. Along the way, we managed to purchase the small yellow house between our corner meeting house and Mary Johnson Child Center, which is still there and now owned by Mary Johnson. It served first as a parsonage for Johanna and then as our RE building. At the end of Johanna's 3-year extension ministry, the congregation voted to call her as our first settled minister. We continued to grow in numbers and programs, soon needing 2 Sunday services with accompanying religious exploration. To welcome more people, we considered a new building and voted in 2004-05 to hire architects to plan a building on our site where the Jehovah's Witness building and the Yellow House were. By 2006, we initiated a capital campaign titled We'll Build a Home. Then in a twist, CVUUS member Connie Lynch offered to sell us her home, now Fenn House, on Duane Court. The architects redesigned a building that would need a lower level to accommodate the sloping site, and incidentally cost $250,000 more than we had expected. With leadership from Steve Meyer, again, and a team of space cadets, they were called, we planned for the new building and we raised the needed funds. Abbott Fenn, a relative of CVUS members Margot and Laurie Borden, who are with, well, Margot is gone, but Laurie is with us on Zoom. Hello, Laurie. Abbott generously donated the proceeds from the sale of his condo, and he also urged us to always protect our small wetland, which, if you haven't seen it, is right down that way, and we try to honor Abbott's request. We dedicated our new sanctuary in September of 2009. Here are 3 quick slides. There we are walking from the Jehovah's Witness building to the new sanctuary. There's Johanna in the building, and here we are in our first service. Johanna retired in 2010, and following a productive 2-year interim with Reverend Emily Melcher. Emily, if you're here on Zoom, Emily is here on Zoom. Welcome, Emily. Emily did a lot for us. She helped us organize ourselves better. She raised our level of spirituality. She was a wonderful interim, and we had a great interim with her. After that interim, we called Reverend Barnaby Feeder as our second full-time minister. Barnaby, would you stand up? I know you're here. With Barnaby's leadership, we implemented a new governance model, hired a director of religious exploration, expanded our music program, eventually hiring a music director who covered all aspects of music, not just the choir, established a Buddhist meditation group, strengthened our community outreach, planned and fundraised for completion of the ground floor, including a full kitchen, fellowship hall, and library meeting room. That project was completed in 2019, just months before the pandemic, with the fellowship hall dedicated to longtime member and benefactor Ann Ross. So that's why we go to the Ann Ross Fellowship Hall after our services. We survived the pandemic, learning new technologies along the way. Just look at the back corner. And today we are here with our wonderful interim ministers, Reverend Tricia and Reverend Christina. If you would stand up too. Stay tuned for more ministerial news this spring as our search continues. I'll end by noting some inspiring themes throughout our history. A can-do spirit, ever widening the circle, sticking with it during hard times, problem solving, reconciliation, gentle communication, commitment, flexibility, fun, generosity, and above all, gratitude for all who have helped create and sustain CVUUS along the way.
Thank you, Rich. Is this on? Yeah. Thank you very much. Speaking of gratitude and time passing, you know, when I started here, I had hair. And now it's gone and gray. What's left? Also, speaking of gratitude, Ashley Cadwell, the other half of Louise Cadwell, the worst half, she's the best half. This summer, in fact, Louise and I celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. And I know as I look out in this crowd, it's a small achievement. Each month we share our offering with an organization that supports UU values. This month's donee is the Vermont Immigration Legal Defense Fund, whose mission is to ensure that every individual, regardless of where they come from, has access to legal support necessary to protect their rights and seek a better future. I'm sure each of us knows of at least one case here not far away where this group has actually served people in need. In addition, around the time of the CVUU's anniversary later this year, we'll revive our tradition of sharing one Sunday's offering with the newest congregation to join the Unitarian Universalist Association. This year we plan to share with the Taos, New Mexico UUs who affiliated this past summer. So after we receive the offering, we'll sing together our song of thanksgiving, looking each other in the eye with the glint of mega thanks.
Good morning. My name is John Berninghausen. A special greeting to those who are participating on Zoom. Embracing our differences. We in CVUUS, as surely is true in every UU congregation, don't always see things the same way. Thank heavens, bravo, and vive la différence. 谢天谢地, that's Chinese for thank heaven and your earth. To be sure, we do have more in common than that which divides us. We share many common values and aspirations. But at the same time, we can make harmonious music while often marching to our different drum beats. No doctrine or dogma, theological or political, imposed from on high, should be allowed to undermine this, our basic sense of community. Our community can hardly be based on mandated conformity. That's not very UU to do that. No creed, text, or set of beliefs should be granted sacrosanct status as possessing unchallengeable truths. Doctrines which could be used to define who's more right-minded and virtuous, who's less so, or who's saved and who's not. For many of us, that starts to look distressingly like the doctrinaire narrowness from which Unitarianism and Universalism have historically offered a broad-minded and embracing refuge. Do we not seek spiritual nourishment in freely drinking from the diverging waters of different religious teachings? For roughly the past 125 years, Unitarianism intentionally included and embraced both theists, those Unitarians who believe in a supreme being, and non-theists, many of whom called themselves humanists. I have been a non-theist since my teenage years. The first Unitarian Society in Minneapolis, in which I was raised starting in 1953 at age 11, was oriented towards a humanist bent, but it still included and embraced lots of theists. Theist or non-theist, no one needed to leave his or her intellect or rationality outside the door before entering the church. And in saying that, I'm channeling the spirit of Gus Swift, Ashley's wonderful father, who I heard say that 40 years ago. It's a cliche, of course, the acorn that grows into the mighty oak. But looking around here at us, at this building, I can't help thinking what a large and healthy oak tree has grown up in just 40 years from that tiny acorn of January 1986. Alice and I are proud we once played our small part in planting and nurturing that acorn, a fragile and implausible yet resilient acorn, from which grew CVUUS's now impressively large and successful religious community. But as I wanted to say when truth broke in with all her matter-of-factness, that's a little thing I just stuck in there for you, all those of you who love poetry and Robert Frost's wonderful poem, Birches. I don't want the oaks to get all the credit today. In those first few years, we did experience some growing pains, tensions, occasional misunderstandings, and a few missteps. Hardly surprising, right? Suffice to recall, it wasn't all sweetness and light. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were occasional differences of opinion over how to best govern ourselves. After about our first 3 years as a fellowship without a minister, as Rich has told us today, reminded us today, we hired our first part-time minister. Sadly for the two of us, over the next several months, Alice and I found ourselves increasingly uncomfortable with and eventually alienated by what seemed to us to be an excessive emphasis on politics, ideology, and social activism. With a considerable sense of loss, we dropped out. We didn't believe 40 years ago, and we still don't believe now, that UU congregations should be unreceptive or come across as alien territory for people who are politically moderate, politically conservative, or apolitical. Liberal theology should not be, in our opinion, equated with liberal politics, nor with whatever the current agenda of political progressivism might be, nor that of any other political ideology or movement. Obviously, the two of us do not and cannot take any credit for all the positive growth that occurred over the next 20 years or so after we pulled out. Our admiration and our gratitude goes to all those of you from the early years and from the following years who stayed the course and who made all of this happen. Hats off to all of you. And kudos to all you others who have joined more recently in the last decade or two and have built CVUUS into such a vibrant church and community. Is there any lesson which might be drawn from all this, from our need to withdraw all those many years ago? I don't know. I would suggest that in most UU congregations, there has always been, and there probably always will be, some degree of tension between an emphasis on spiritual exploration versus an emphasis on social activism. Yes, religion and politics do sometimes intersect, but not always. Achieving an appropriate balance between the two probably contributed a lot to the healthy growth of this congregation over the past 40 years. In any case, we did rejoin 13 years ago. We are so very glad that we did. Thank you all for warmly welcoming us back into CVUUS. Thank you, Barnaby, for your wonderful sermons, which engaged us and spiritually enriched us. And thank you for embracing our differences. We embrace yours.
My name is Catherine Schloff, and back in the day, these milestones and passages were called Joys and Concerns. And in RE, the children would do a similar Joy and Concerns when we were all together. And I'll never forget, Jeff Birdsall's son made a brilliant one, I thought, when he said, "I have a joy that I don't have a concern." I'll never forget that. Today's card is from Marnie Wood, and she wrote, "Today's anniversary of CVUUS causes me to share a personal milestone of the joy of family ancestors within the last decade that I finally became aware that my great-grandparents were married in a Universalist church in Rhode Island in the 1800s. And their daughter, my great-aunt, whom I've known as a child, was a Universalist in San Diego. Today, I'm wearing the diamond ring they both wore." Thank you.
I'm Dorothy Mammen. One day after the CVUUS upcoming 40th birthday is my daughter's 40th birthday. From that, I'll let you infer my condition at the first service. I'm introducing the meditation this morning. Among other things, I am a scientist. I tend toward analytical thinking. I look for patterns. As we've developed this service, I've been reminded of a pattern called punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium is a pattern in which there's a period of equilibrium where things are in balance, possibly changing incrementally over time, but staying more or less in balance. This equilibrium is then interrupted, punctuated, by some kind of upheaval, like not singing Old Hundredth anymore. From within or without, a major or catastrophic event, or spiraling out of control that may last for some time until things settle down again different than they were before. This pattern has shown itself in the history of this congregation, as you've heard today, in various ways. It's seen in the history of life on Earth, such as when mass extinctions have interrupted long periods of incremental evolutionary change. It's a pattern that may occur in our lives, in our relationships, in organizations, in economies, in countries. An upheaval, a period of enormous change, is a time of great uncertainty. But having seen this pattern in complex systems again and again, we can also have hope for the nature of the new equilibrium that we know will come in time on the other side. I invite you to share a time of silence together.
My name is Abby Sessions. 40 years ago, that's more than half my life. My children, like many of the children of other early members, were in preschool and elementary school. Now they're knocking on the door of their 50s. Somehow, by some small miracle, a band of determined souls found one another and thought that we could make a UU community. We named it Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. Where did we imagine we would be 40 years later Did we even try to imagine that? I certainly never could have predicted the great joy that I feel at this moment in this beautiful building, looking out at your beautiful faces and those on Zoom. Members and friends of CVUUS. What we have accomplished in this 40-year journey is not only because of that determined little band of founders, though. What we have accomplished is because of you. The founders are the kids who got a basketball and stood on the court and hollered out, "Hey, anybody want a game?" And if nobody shows up to play, there is no game. The kids take their basketball and they go home. The founders hollered out that call and you showed up to play. You are the sustainers of this congregation. With love and creativity and commitment and generosity of spirit, you have given your time, your resources, and you've shared your talents. You have seen an opportunity and stepped into it. You have shoveled the sidewalks and made the coffee. You've joined the canvas teams and the search committees. You've worked with the banks and the builders. You've sung in the choir and taught RE. You have made opportunities for all of us to nurture our spiritual growth and build this beloved community. In hundreds of ways, you have carefully and lovingly stewarded this congregation and grown it each time, at each punctuation, into its next phase of equilibrium. You have sustained this community. We, all of us, have made us the mighty presence we are today. So I say, let the founders have their day in the sun today. But let's also honor all those who have sustained the vision of CVUUS in all its many facets, through its ups and downs for these past 40 years. And let's especially honor and support and encourage those folks who perhaps are just discovering us, who will step forward to lead us, lead the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society through the next 40 years. Thank you. I forgot the next part I'm supposed to do. You can see who were the real organizers behind this whole enterprise. It wasn't me. To encourage you to connect with CVUUS, we have many pathways. One is to join Reverend Christina this Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Zoom for a death cafe online. This is one of Reverend Christina's favorite topics, in case you didn't know. She thinks that by contemplating our death, we can live more fully. I invite you to Reverend Christina's Death Cafe on Wednesday. There's a Zoom link in the blast, last week's blast, and this coming week's blast. Now I'd like to invite Steve Meyer up to make an announcement.
Good morning. Morning. My name is Steve Meyer, and my name is Steve Meyer, And as you've heard, I remember a quote. I'm 98% sure it was from Reverend Johanna, who said something along the lines of, don't put a goal in front of this congregation unless you're prepared to have it meet the goal. And as you've heard today, there have been many goals, and my job today is to make an announcement about the latest accomplishment, or the accomplishment of our latest goal, building-related goal, which is that we put in front of you all last year as part of our Roots and Wings campaign to pay off the rest of our mortgage on this building. And I was told you had a photo of Mary. So there's Mary Conlon this past week, and in her hand right there is a check for $49,000 and some change. That is the last payment on the mortgage for this building.
Wow. For more pathways to connection to this incredible congregation, this Friday is all ages game night, potluck dinner at 6, games at 7. Bring guests, bring your friends, and games to try and swap. You could RSVP to Mike Greenwood or Michelle Sponheimer. Michelle's over here. Mike's in the lobby. Contra Dance next Sunday, January 18th at 3 p.m., live music and called in non-gendered fashion by Richard Hopkins. All ages, again, invite your friends. And this afternoon, there's a dance party right here in the sanctuary from 1 to 3. Everyone is welcome. If you are able and willing, we could use some help in moving the chairs out of the way so that the dancing can take place this afternoon. Please stay for social hour in the Ann Ross Fellowship Hall and join us for cake to celebrate Ann Ross's birthday and all the other January birthdays. The choir will now assemble in the back of the sanctuary.
The song we are, I think now I'm on, okay. The song we are going to sing this morning is called Amani Utupe by Patsy Ford Sims, and that translates as grant me peace, give me courage. I think great words to consider as we go into our next 40 years.
Strength to carry on our load. Well, that was wonderful. My name is Bill Sessions, and I've been here from the beginning. These words appeared in our first newsletter, and it was in early January of 1986. It was under the heading of Words for a New Year and a New Beginning, and I selected it because it is so poignant for today. It goes as follows. Tomorrow is unto us as a door to be opened or closed, as a journey, an adventure. Tomorrow is a springtime and a harvest time, and the grain to be gathered is life. And the flowers and the fruits are community and compassion. Blessed be.
Hi, I'm Dinah Smith, and before we extinguish the candle, I have a few words to say about the origins of the Flower Co-op. One of the ways CVUUS tries to connect with you each week. We grew out of the days when we had a space that was our very own, when we worshiped in that space that was known then as the Kingdom Hall. In those early days of building ownership, Bobby Carnwath had a sharp sense of space and saw an interior that did not resonate with her joyful self. She would, just like magic, appear before each service with a riot of flowering color from her garden. When the seasons changed and there weren't any flowers, she brought arrangements from the fields, beautiful arrangements. When we built this new sanctuary and we needed to grow a bigger flower co-op for a bigger space, Pat Todd challenged us to do something bigger. She threw down a bunch of branches and said, "You guys do it now." And then she left. Very wise woman. So now we have a finished lower level, the Ann Ross Fellowship Hall, and Marnie Wood continues the seasonal welcome with fresh ideas and materials. December's past, our arrangements of greens, golds, reds, pine cones are done except for the wreaths. They'll come down next week. Thank you, Alice. In January, our arrangements call your attention to the changing light. The reflections of sun on ice, sun on snow, sun on the bare trees, demand our focus. Each season, we borrow from you. We reach out to you in one way or another. So for January, we thank Alice and John for your birch trees, your birch branches, and we thank Mike and Liam for your January wedding 4 years ago when you challenged us to think really hard all the ways we might bring light to love in this sanctuary. And so there you go. We connect with you in all the ways we can. Conjure up. Alice, will you join me to extinguish the chalice, and let's say the words on the screen. Are you ready? We extinguish this flame, remembering always to keep love at the center. Thank you.